very many times.
Yep. And
Uh,
we're all set to go. So I'm going to mute so I don't create some back channel here.
okay. Just a second. Okay, is that working?
Yep. You might dump it in present mode, but whenever you're ready. So jump in.
Okay. All right. Okay, so um, my project is what social media practices that pop surrealist visual artists use. Let me go to my presentation here. There we go. That's what I want to use. Okay. So I chose this topic because I myself am. Let me go back. I'll just focus on that for a second so you can see. I chose this topic because I myself am a visual artist and I focus on pop surrealism. I've used social media for my art promotion and I want to learn more about other artist processes. I've always loved creating traditional and digital artwork, and it's my favorite genre. Technology is important in gaining fans in this genre and clients for artwork today. So I'm curious about what makes other artists popular via social media. So that's what I focus on. The three platforms I'm going to focus on are Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Facebook is useful for a conversation with fans of the artwork. Instagram focuses on images and uses hashtags. And Twitter is popular with established artists and celebrities, obviously. Um, on Facebook, users typically use their own names and share personal information via these accounts. So it is more likely that it's the best way for artists to directly converse with their fans. This allows for real-time feedback that can be used to gain insight into how artwork is being received. Positive experiences can be amplified by users who choose to share the artist's work. Negative feedback is possible with this platform, so there's an element of customer service that is vital for an artist to use. Let me just go back here on my notes here. Just a second. Instagram is primarily a mobile platform, so that has to be taken into account by a visual artist. The image-based world of Instagram is a perfect place to find and follow new artists, as is defined by the visual, in a way that Twitter and Facebook simply are not. That's a quote from Caldwell, an author that I'm using for my paper. Twitter is better for established artists. They use Twitter because it's popular with celebrities and other public figures, and generally those people have a lot more followers and they just have an established career. um, Artists typically, when they're online, they like to focus on their branding if they're successful. They have an online presence, and the consistency of that presence is key. They have a unique brand identity, and they compete for time and interest with other media. So it's important that they have a unique identity to um, make themselves stand out. Just, there's a lot of competition for viewership today. So many artists that are sharing their work online, they try to carve out their own identity that's easily identifiable so that they stand out from the crowd. Online networking is popular with artists online, uh, is popular with artists. Galleries can meet an artist online, and artists can meet clients online. They share ideas and influences and inspiration. As with other businesses, artists that want to sell their products online should use the internet to network. Galleries often take submissions via email and can discover the work of artists through social media channels and word of mouth. Clients, both prospective and established, often find artwork online that they like and want more information before purchasing or establishing a contract. Ideas can be quickly shared between artists and followers via social media and online presence. The method to my project, the biggest thing in the beginning is, of course, research. I'll take notes on the practices of 4 artists that I choose. I'll watch their videos on YouTube and whatnot and browse their social media. I'll record data such as the frequency of their posting and likes and followers and all those things. Some other criteria I haven't decided upon yet. Google Docs is my favorite platform when I take notes because it's cloud-based. I plan on creating common markers to judge each artist's online presence by. Some of these will include qualitative and quantitative data, such as what is the artist's website address, how many images are on the front page, how often does the artist post on each social media platform. Those would be quantitative, so it can be easily compared. It's important to use criteria that's well defined and can be easily compared, so I can draw conclusions from those observations. Oh, I didn't finish that slide. Just a second. The genre I'm focusing on is pop surrealism. This fuses 2 genres of pop art and surrealism. It was founded in California in the 1970s, and it was termed lowbrow back then. Pop art is especially relevant today because of prominent TV, movies, and other media that how prominent those are in people's lives. Fan art is where artists use pre-existing pop culture and characters, and it gains a lot of has gained a lot of attention in recent years. This combined with realism is surrealism is a new genre that's been popular in social media and online. These are the artists I'm going to focus on. They all have a big social media following and presence. Greg Simpkins, Jeff Soto, Brandy Milne, and N.C. Winters. California is a birthplace of pop surrealism, so it's probably not a surprise that all of these artists reside in California. They're all active creating artwork today, and they have a significant online following that can carry over into the real world. This is some artwork from Greg Simpkins. He's been creating paintings that are often large scale and they have elaborate scenes that combine nature and elements of pop culture. These are just some samples of the artwork of each. This is N.C. Winters. He typically creates artwork that is obviously inspired by pop culture characters. Much of it can be considered fan art. This is Jeff Soto's work. He often creates dreamy, robotic, surreal images. And this is Brandy Milne's work. She creates work that is reminiscent of vintage illustrations with an element of darkness. As far as my production strategy and how I plan on creating this, I'll use Photoshop, Adobe Premiere, Google Apps, and Prezi. I'll take notes and gather information about the 4 artists I previously mentioned. My primary focus will be on their online practices that have contributed to their success. I'll collect data on their social media practices via Google Apps, spreadsheets, and documents. Once I have enough data points, I'll be able to analyze that data in order to create a visual representation, most likely an infographic. Since there are only 4 artists, I'll gain a significant amount of data about each one. I'll use Photoshop in order to edit my images and create infographics. I'll use Premiere Pro in order to create content for a Prezi presentation. The first part of my project will be an infographic or a couple infographics. I'll present my findings and conclusion about the data I gathered about social media presence for the 4 artists. The feedback loop infographic will focus on how social media response to an artist influences further art creation and or sales. In the second part of my project is the main focus of that is a Prezi. The research I conduct will be focused on artists that create visual art. So the Prezi I create will be heavily focused on those images and how they have been shared and marketed successfully online. YouTube videos will be shared in the Prezi that give insight into the social media practices of the 4 artists I've chosen. All 4 of these artists have YouTube content available too. After I create the Prezi, I will display the presentation and add narrated audio in Adobe Premiere so that I can create a whole video that is engaging. I know I went through everything really fast, and I probably had a lot more to say. Those are my references. So let me see.
Chris, thank you very much. That was
I don't know what else how else to explain it, but
yeah, no. I think that's fine. So just so I understand it, is what you're proposing to do is take a rather deep dive on 4 artists.
yeah, it's
And
mostly their social media presence.
yeah. How did you?
Artwork isn't the biggest thing, so
Right, and that's what I meant. Yeah, a deep dive on the social media presence of 4 artists. How did you choose them? Did you choose them because they're successful? Did you choose them because they represent diverse set of practices or diverse set of? Are they similar to each other or different from each other, or were they randomly chosen, or what?
I'm pretty familiar with all of them, and they do have a lot of differences between them. Even though they're all based in California, their work is quite different from each other. They're very popular. Each one of them has probably hundreds of thousands of followers online. Like Greg Simpkins' pieces can sell for like $30,000 in a big gallery, but he has a big social media presence and everything too.
Chris, I was wondering, when you're talking about the social media presence and success, that, you were just saying one of the ways that you counted success maybe was in ability to sell a piece of work for a lot of money, right?
Yeah, that's not the only indicator, but that's an example of how successful he's been.
So one of the things that comes up for me about this is that what is the question you're trying to answer? And if the question you're trying to answer is what are the online practices that lead to success, then right. Do we know that they cause success? Like, these people might be wildly successful and then they have an intern do their social media and it's just, you know what I mean? Like, how are you going to say that that's the online practices that are leading to their success, or are they just a product of it?
I've seen them expand. I followed a little bit along the last 10 years of each of them. I know Greg Simpkins, his wife, does everything with him. It's specifically those 2 people that work on his social media presence and everything. It's usually the artist themselves that focuses on their social media because they're the one that knows their work the best. I don't know if it's a byproduct necessarily of how successful they've been already, but that's something I can figure out if I research it more. I know that it definitely helps. They gain more followers and that. I mean, a lot of these galleries take submissions online, and that's how they even become aware of these people. So, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know exactly.
Uh-huh.
I think that's a really important question, though. If and it's one that you might avoid having to address if you reframe your question. Right, because if your question talks about a causal link between online social media presence and artistic success, defined however you define it, then we need to have some evidence about that. If your overall question is what are the social media practices of 4 artists in 2017, and what can we learn from my in-depth examination of these 4 artists that might be generalizable across artists,
right?
That's very different.
Right.
Is that, I don't know if I reframed your question appropriately, Kathy.
Yeah, I think that gets to the heart of it, which is I tried to follow what it is that you're doing, and it seems like you said at one point you're creating a video about what you learned, and I'm trying to picture what that video would be like. So that video would say, here are these 4 artists and this is how they use social media differently. That makes me wonder if 4 artists is enough. Like, it's possible that a very deep dive of their social media could come up with lots of different ideas.
Yeah.
But I start to wonder if your objective is to look at social media practices and maybe best practices and unique practices and ways that artists can use these tools differently, maybe 4 is a little bit small.
Yeah, I talked to Steve about that before, about maybe just taking a lot of artists and then gathering a little like less data about those and just getting a ton of data about more artists, gathering a lot of data all together. But I haven't really completely settled on that. I'm open to your suggestions. I don't know.
I think if you're just going to be studying 4, and this is coming from kind of a qualitative methods background, then you're going to want to know a lot about their, you know, their strategies, their process, their, you know, everything about them. So you probably need to talk to them. And
yeah, I don't see that happening.
If you don't see that happening, then I don't know how you're going to connect
Right.
the, you know, their intention with what you see on social media. It's sort of like if someone says, oh, I'm going to, you know, see what Catherine does online. Oh, look at that. And it's, you know, based on my mood, but it might look like it has some sort of sense behind it.
Right.
So I guess in order to, I don't know, what were you?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if somebody wanted to study the social media practices of Donald Trump, we'd accept something like that.
We would.
Without having to talk to Donald Trump. So I think you could learn it, but so you know, it does depend on what exactly you're going to do and how big the presence is. Like, you know, Donald Trump is going to have 70,000 tweets to look at.
Yeah.
So depending on how the shape, you know, so that's a tough thing. You know, 4 might be fine.
Should I just start gathering data? I know they're like very, I don't know what the word is for it, prolific. Like I know they post like at least once a day, all of them, probably at least.
Right. Which so it might be that those 4 might be fine, but it might be those are the wrong 4.
Right.
You know, different types of artists. If there's the prolific and the sporadic and the, you know, low frequency regular art, you know, maybe you want one of each of those. If there's the very famous or the just starting out, you know, so if you had some sort of a framework that would help you lead to your sample, that would help us.
Okay.
If you want to pick out the 4 most famous pop surrealist artists and do a deep dive on what they do, that would be fine too. That's equivalent in my field of politics to taking presidential candidates instead of studying, you know, different politicians from town clerk to president. Just look at Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, and you're good to go. You know, that's fine. That's a method. So if you're 4 of the top artists, that's great.
Right. These people are pretty prominent. I mean, people that follow it know who they are. So
yeah. So you just want to justify the selection of the 4.
And then after that, you'd probably want to justify your decision about what the final product would be.
Yeah.
Right.
Is creating a video about the practices of these 4 going to be useful to an audience?
Sean's video was a walkthrough of his Prezi. Did you catch that?
I didn't.
So that, yeah, so if you go to that slide, the video itself is, he has a Prezi that walks us through the 4 artists, and then the video is his narrated Prezi.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
the video
is
just me capturing the Prezi, right?
I'm sorry, Chris, I missed that question.
Oh, sorry. The video is just me capturing the Prezi.
Okay, I understand. That makes more sense. I was trying to picture like a more produced video about this, and I was having trouble picturing.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense too. So, any other questions or thoughts for Chris? Okay, Chris, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, I just wanted a general question if I'm headed in the right direction this time, or
I think so. It's much tighter and focused, and you've got a question. I think if you address the questions, and I think that I'll take a look at these slides and try to write a response as well to what you submitted. So once you submit that full proposal, we can respond to it. I kind of want to see the written part so that I have a good idea of of what you're building. But I think you're much closer in the right direction now.
Okay. Yeah. As long as I focus just on social media and really narrow it down, I think that's a better idea than where I was before.
Yep, I think so.
Right. And then we'll look forward to seeing your literature review, Chris.
Okay.
Because the sooner that gets cleaned up, the easier we can, easier it is for us to respond.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Before we leave, are there any general questions? I know we took this with some late blooming proposals.